Good evening, good evening, good evening. I'm Malcolm Jarell. I am the host of Black and White TV. Tonight, we will be examining What Now, which is examining the next steps for change. Tonight, I have with me the chairman and chairwoman and president of the Charles County NAACP's chapter, Dyotha Sweat, and she's going to join me in talking about all of what's going on with the movement, the plan of action of the NAACP, and their call to action, and what are some next step changes that we can make in light of these recent situations. So she's going to join me in a few minutes, but I'll give you just a little overview, and then we're going to jump right into the topic tonight. And I'm so glad again that you all have decided to join me tonight, and I'm elated, so elated that we can talk about this tonight. So, as you all know, in the wake of recent killings of George Floyd and others by the hands of police, there's been a surge of unrest in our nation due to the state of systemic racism and police brutality toward the Black community. And time again, we've seen our brothers and sisters murdered by racial violence, and each time we have taken to the streets with our rallying cry of Black Lives Matter, only to put an end to this deadly injustice. Across this nation, Black rights organizations and coalitions are drafting measures and taking legal and political action to foster change on a systemic level. So tonight's guest, Ms. Dyotha Sweat, who again is the president and chairwoman of the Charles County NAACP, she's going to join me in talking about the work that she's doing here in the community, as well as the NAACP's call to action and their petition for a civilian review board that will be able to hold law officials accountable and offer oversight to our law enforcement agencies. So I'm just going to read, before I bring Dyotha on, I'm going to read a little bit of her bio. Dyotha Renee Sweat is a native of Paterson, New Jersey, who moved to Charles County, Maryland in 2008. Retired from the United States Navy after 24 years, and we thank you for your service to our country. She's been actively involved in Charles County since her retirement in 2010. She dedicates her life to advocating for women, female veterans, and our youth. And she gives of her time and support to local organizations that advocate on behalf of homelessness in our community. And she also supports the Metropolitan United Methodist Church's SHARE program by purchasing meals and donating to communities in need. Before becoming branch president of the local chapter, she served 2 terms as first vice president and also serves currently as the Maryland State NAACP Youth and College Division Advisor. In October 2017, she submitted a resolution to address missing persons in the state to the state conference, and in addition to address the lack of an alert system for missing persons ages 19 through 65 under suspicious circumstance. She's advocated for this resolution to be adopted by the NAACP at their annual convention in San Antonio, Texas in July of 2018. When the resolution was adopted, she continued to advocate with community leaders until the resolution became a part of HR 5075, the Ashanti Alert Act of 2018. On December 31st, the Ashanti Alert Act was signed into law. Because of this law, local law enforcement agencies will now have funding to search for missing persons ages 19 through 65 under suspicious circumstances. Dyotha also supports the local veteran organizations such as HATS, V Connections, and serves as adjutant for the American Legion Randolph Fury Post 170. She advocates in Annapolis on legislation that affects the various veterans in the community. She also takes pride in educating local veterans on legislation that will assist with resources that will meet the needs of veterans in the veterans population of our community. She's also a member of Top Ladies of Distinction, the Southern Maryland chapter, and is the current 2020 Hall of Fame recipient. That's awesome. Dyotha has received her bachelor's in sociology from St. Leo University, her MBA in information system management from Grantham University, and she is currently employed in the field of cybersecurity. Dyotha has 2 adult children, Ashley and Robert, and 1 grandson, Cyrus. And I just want you all to join me in welcoming Dyotha Sweat, Chairwoman of the Charles County NAACP, to Black and White. How you doing tonight?
I'm wonderful, Brother Malcolm. How are you?
Great, great. I'm awesome.
Yes.
I'm so
Thank
glad
you
that
for
you
this
could join me tonight.
opportunity.
Absolutely. So, are you fired up and ready to go?
Always, always fired up and ready to go.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I really want to just jump right into it. We're no stranger to one another. We've been out at many different events, many different community gatherings, fighting for the same thing, which is change in our community and to foster that change and offer that change to our young people now. I've been a part of many different affiliations, and I hold the NAACP very close because of the work that you all have done in Charles County. Countless times, whenever issues have arisen in our community, it was always the NAACP who led the charge, and I've seen a lot of change in our community due to all of the work that you've been doing. So I thank you generously for everything that you're continuing to do, just holding up the mantle for change.
You're welcome.
But I just want to jump right into it. So you should have in front of you the topics for tonight, and for the viewers out there, we have a really great list of things to talk about tonight. We're going to jump in with the NAACP's call to response, when they call to action in their protest response. We're going to talk about Dyotha's pen to paper initiative that she introduced to the Charles County NAACP, the Civilian Review Board, which has been a really hot topic in our local community lately. I have a few things that I want to address there. Then we're going to go into other goals and strategies that we may have right now as action items. And then we're going to talk a little bit before we go about education in our community and what we all should do in case we're ever encountered by any law enforcement agent in our community. So I just want to jump right in, Diotha. You have the brief, but I have the questions. I have the questions, and I really, when I have these conversations and I have people on, I really like to pick your brain and really see what it is you think. You know, I know we represent our agencies and our organizations, and we represent ourselves, but I just really want to know what your views are and your thoughts are to some of these things. I've been reading a lot in the news lately, different statements from our local law enforcement officers. The state's attorney, he offered a statement. The sheriff's office, they offered a statement. And I really kind of wanted to break those things down and see what it really means for our people in the community. And is it really answering the question, or is it really reaching the demand that we're making right now? So I just wanted to analyze that. So since the surge of protests, I just want to know. I saw you out at the I Matter rally that the NAACP coordinated. I also saw you on both events at Juneteenth weekend, championing the cause. So since the surge of protests here in the nation, what steps has the NAACP taken to offer change, and what measures are you currently seeking?
Well, it's a very good question, and I would like to first share that the campaign that we set was because over and over again we do a lot of protesting, we do a lot of rallying, but once all of that fire subsides, people go back to their normal lives and go back to things like things never happened. And so
Right.
we wanted to come up with a campaign, and the campaign is what now. And with that campaign, I said it several times, pen to paper. And so with pen to paper, that means that you need to now challenge our elected officials to change policies. Okay, so
Absolutely.
if we do not change the law, then people will not change with how they respond to what we're demanding. And so that is the reason why we did come up with this What Now campaign. And the pen to paper is that we need that pen to paper is legacy change, legislation change. We need
Right.
the policy makers to understand that what's in place right now is not working for us. It is not helping us to stay safe. And so we need you all that we've elected to change that. And so that's how that was birthed. And what we're doing right now is that we're meeting with uh, community leaders. We're building a coalition right now. We have put a petition out on the street, and our petition has a list of organizations that have agreed to stand shoulder to shoulder with the NAACP as we fight this charge. And with that, now other organizations are now saying, "Hey, we need to be in that fight with you as well because it affects not just us, but the people that we're leading over." So we are
Right.
planning, we're strategizing because come January 2021, we need to be ready.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel like that's the initial goal is looking ahead. We're dealing with what's going on right now. It's hurting our community on an emotional level. It's hurting our community on a mental level. But we need to look ahead at the steps of change that we can provide now. You know, we're looking down the road, but what can we do now to lead up to that, to
Mhm.
ensure that, like you said, come January 2021, we're actually ready and we have our voice and our say on the ballot and at the ballot box. So I definitely
Right.
agree with you. But there's one thing you said though, and you excused yourself, but I caught it. You said legacy change, and I want to kind of touch on that a little bit because I think that it is indeed legacy change. It is because we in
Mhm.
our community we know the history of the civil rights movement, and we know
Right.
that the NAACP has always been at the forefront, always been at the front of those movements and that action being taken. Um, ever since the 1955 bus boycotts, we knew that the NAACP was serious about taking action to make that to press those changes for legislation. But in each generation, we had to make change for a new legacy. We had to leave a new legacy of change. So I like to
Right.
think that all of the change that's been on the books so far for us in the means of civil rights legislation that's been passed to ensure the safety of black people in this country, to ensure
Mhm.
our voting rights, to ensure that we weren't discriminated against, and to abolish segregation. All of those things that the NAACP had their hand in bringing about that effective change, those things were for a different time and a different legacy. So I like to think now what we're fighting for now is to remind everyone that our lives matter. We have change on the books,
Right.
but there's new change that's needed because someone needed to be reminded that our lives too matter. Black
Mhm.
lives matter in this country, and we shouldn't be taken for granted, nor should we be treated like we're expendable. So I definitely that's something that I'm gonna have to do a little digging on that one. I have to dig a little deeper on that legacy change, what that
Yeah.
is.
Well, the legacy this time is before we were fighting to be treated equally. Now we're fighting to stay alive. That's what the fight is
Right,
for now because the laws are not there to protect us. And so now we're trying to agitate the change of the law so that our lives do matter. And so now the change is not just for me to have fair and equitable education or to be able to vote or to be able to have fair housing. Now we're fighting to stay alive. So
right,
that is what the real goal is now is to stop killing us because you think that you can get away with it.
right. Absolutely. And I mean, it's gotten to a point where, in one of my last episodes, I asked the question, "Are we really safe?" And I feel like that was a question that we all should have asked ourselves personally. How do we feel about the systemic racism in our law enforcement agencies? How do we feel about the laws and things that have been passed that further the division in our
Mhm.
communities and further the disparities that we've lived under for so many years? Is
Mhm.
looking at what those things have done to us for so many years. You know, and it's mind-boggling that we can't even sleep in our beds. We can't even jog
Absolutely.
down the street without the threat of violence. I saw a gentleman had posted a picture on social media. He was jogging down the street, just going for his morning jog, and he had a shirt on the back of his shirt said, "Don't shoot. I'm just jogging." And it's like, is that the reality? Is that the
That
state of
that
reality
shouldn't
that
be
we're
in a
in?
free world like America. It
No,
should not
no,
be.
it
That
should
should
not.
not be in America.
No, it should not at all. And like you said, but because of it, we have to shift the the direction of where we're going. We have to fight to stay alive in this country because there shouldn't
Hmm.
be so many different names. There shouldn't be. I have
Right.
a T-shirt that says Black Lives Matters, but if you look a little closely, the whole inscription is made up of the names of so many
Hmm.
people who have died
Right.
unjustly, whether it had been at the hands of some vigilante that thought they
Mhm.
were a neighborhood watch, or even if it was some racist law enforcement officer. These things
Right.
should not happen. It's just that simple that they should not happen. So I'm glad that we're able to put some fire underneath the need for change right now in this country. And I'm so grateful that, again, that the work is going forward in Charles County because this is necessary. Now, you touched on pen to paper a little bit, and I wanted to kind of get into that and
Hmm.
see what that philosophy really means to you. I know we're looking for legislative change. We're looking for systemic reform, but at the same time, how are we keeping that momentum going? We're working with other agencies. We're building that coalition, but um, what more can we do to further that and to bolster that effort? I had thought about talking to you about some Zoom meetings where community leaders can gather and really have like a think tank where we just
Hmm.
brainstorm, continually just brainstorm different ideas and bounce things off of one another to try to see what are some things that we can do now, to try to change things in the immediate. We know that legislation could take a few years.
Right.
It could take a few years to see that systemic change. But what can we do now to offer those steps of change to make them realize, to give our people hope? Because like you said earlier, um, it's not a movement where you have to walk away from it and just let it subside. We really have to take advantage of the change now. Recently, at one of the gatherings that we were partnered at, you said something about if we don't take advantage of the change, if we don't, like you say, put pen to paper, if we don't do that,
Hmm.
the moment will pass us by and it won't come again in our lifetime. So I
Right.
just want to I want to pick your brain. Let me see what you think about pen to paper. What does that really mean for you?
So pen to paper really means is getting people back on the field. We have a lot of us sitting in the stands, and so we have benefited from the civil rights movement, and we have enjoyed some luxuries that our parents and our grandparents have not enjoyed. And so the pen to paper is really is to it's an action. And so if you're doing the pen to paper, you're doing the research, you're going to the meetings, you're asking the questions because when it's time to take the test, you have to know what the information is being you're being tested on. And so pen to paper to me is getting us back into the political arena like we used to be. Years ago, you could go to anybody's house and they could tell you who their delegation was, who their senators were, who was who was the who. Today you can't do that.
Right.
Today you can you we have moved away from politics, and everything that we do. is dictated by politics. And
That's right.
so we don't want to get you ready for January to get to Annapolis to testify. We want to act like today is playoff time. We want to make sure today is the
Right.
day that we go into Annapolis. You treat every day moving up to January like it's Annapolis. So every time
Right.
you see an elected official, you ask them the hard questions because we elected them to make sure that we live in an environment that's safe. But because we're not holding them accountable, they get to do whatever they want to do. And then 6 months prior to election, then everybody comes out from underneath the dirt and starts saying that I want it, and they start saying what you want to hear. Pen to paper is to make them say what we need them to say today. So we don't
Right.
have to prune them and get them ready when it's time to go before the legislators to advocate for change. So pen to paper is action. That's how I look at it. I'm an action person. We're not going to do a lot of talking. Let's
That's
get
right.
it, let's do it, and let's move on to the next thing. And that's what pen to paper means to me.
And that's what I'm talking about. It's all about the action that's necessary. So if we're going to take some action, I want to challenge the Charles County NAACP to develop a list of our elected officials. I'm not saying that you haven't already done so, or you probably already have a list, but to share that
Mhm.
list on social media, share that list publicly, and charge the people to write those letters, to call in and blow those phone lines up so that we can start seeing some change due to our pressure. Because I believe
Absolutely.
that's where it comes from. If we put pen to paper and then we apply pressure to that. So I would
Absolutely.
definitely I would want to see that see the Charles County NAACP to take on that challenge of putting that pressure out there, pressure the people to pressure their leaders, so that we can
Mm-hmm.
start to see this change. So I'm grateful for that. So this next one, and I love that we're open about this. This next one, I want to talk about the Civilian Review Board and
Okay.
what the NAACP is doing with that. So if you could just tell me in a brief few words, what is the Civilian Review Board in Charles County? What is that initiative, and what is the NAACP doing to champion that cause?
Okay, so first, let's. A lot of people are misunderstand that this is just a end of Charles County initiative. This is an initiative that is at the national level. The national level has put this out that this is something that we should be advocating for at our local, at the local level. And so, what the Civilian Review Board is that it's an independent board that has investigative powers to investigate police misconduct. And so it allows you to go and pull data. It allows you to pull reports and, and question people and investigate and misconduct, and then to be able to have the board make recommendations to the sheriff's department as to how this officer should be reprimanded. And it also can also, and a lot of times what we don't talk about is the fact that if a false allegation was brought up against the officer, this board can also look into that to make sure that if it is a wrong allegation, the board can prove that it was incorrect, and they can go back and say, no, that is not what happened. So we always just look on the side of the misconduct of the police officer, but the board can also be a friend for a police officer that is being uh, unjustly accused of something. So the whole gist of this is that the Civilian Review Board in Charles County, we've been fighting this now for 20 years. Wanda Woodland has been fighting this, and presidents after her. And so we
Right.
could have had this a long time ago if we had not asked for the investigative powers. But without the investigative powers, it does you no good. Okay,
Right.
you need to have the ability to investigate outside independently of the agency. Just think about it. If I have to tell you I did something wrong, do you think I'm going to tell you?
Right.
No, you need to go and investigate and say, no, this is what you've done wrong, and what are you going to do about it? And
Right.
so that's what the TRB is designed to do. But again, I want to be clear that this is the national NAACP is asking as for us to do this.
Right. Right. So, for if it's a national effort, how does it look different? I know that in Charles County predominantly, we don't necessarily have a surge of violence, police violence. So how would that differ in different communities?
And we
Does the
don't want it. And the board would stop that. Okay, we
right,
do not want to be Baltimore on fire. We don't want to be Minnesota on fire. We don't want to
right,
be Florida. So the board is there as a preventive maintenance to make sure that if you do have some bad seeds, that the community can know about it before this bad seed ends up having you on the 5 o'clock news. That is the whole purpose of that. That is what because we have had people that have died at the hands of police officers in Charles County.
yes, we have,
Now it
yes,
didn't get the press, but they could have, and we could have went up in flames as well. So we want to make sure that we don't do that. So that's why we're fighting for this to prevent that from happening.
right. So you're saying that each community chapter would have the ability to tailor that CRB to the needs of their community.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
So
So the board is so we do have boards that are up and running in the state of Maryland. So it's not like this is something that we will be the first to do.
right, but it's a continual effort of what's already in place to
Mm-hmm.
ensure these things. Right.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the key points considering the needs of the Charles County community as a whole, the Black community as a whole, really? What are some of the things that you think the Charles County's CRB could look like, and what are some of those things that we could focus on? Those
Well,
issues.
it needs to be a good mixture of the community. It needs to it needs to be driven by the community. It does not need to be driven by elected officials. It does not need to be directed by law enforcement. Just as the sheriff spoke to public safety board, that is internal to the sheriff's department. So that is not something that we would agree to because we don't have control of that. And
Right,
so we want something that the community will feel that if the report comes out, that it is not jaded and that it is a true assessment of what has happened.
right. Okay. So with the many different media outlets offering different perspectives on the information we receive,
Mm-hmm.
because we watch, we're inundated every day with so many different news outlets. Uh,
Right.
Outside of the work that's already going on, what are some other goals? What are some real time strategies that we can do? We're writing letters to our legislative leaders. We're calling them on the phone. We're meeting. We're offering these different pen to paper actions. We're doing
Mm-hmm.
writing initiatives. We're Zoom calling. We're doing all that we can do, and it seems like it's a slow. Sometimes it seems like a slow effort. What can we do to ensure that our momentum is kept in the movement is continuing?
Well, we have to remind everybody of the lives that have been lost, and we want Mr. Floyd to be the last one. Okay, we have enough names that we can honor a memory of a lost loved one for 365 days and forward. So what we have to do is that we have to remember what happened, and we need to make sure that it never happens again. So we need to not be in the moment all the time. We need to stay focused. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. You know, in the marathon at about mile 15, you get tired.
Mm-hmm.
You,
That's
you,
right.
your body wants to quit on you, but you have to find the stamina from somewhere. You need to find something to keep you moving. And so these next few months, that's our 15 mile. We need to be able to, in the NAACP, we will continue to say, okay, remember George Floyd, remember Trayvon Martin, remember Michael Brown, remember Breonna Taylor, that still the law enforcement have not been arrested. These are the things that we have to keep saying to people so that they understand this is not over. Just
It's
because
not
the
over.
test is done and people are not in the streets like they were a month ago, this is not over. And that's what the NAACP, that's why we're 111 years old, because we remind people the fight is not over.
That's right. And I just want to thank you so much, Dyotha, for helping us in Charles County to keep the fight going. Because like you said, it's not over, and there's so much work to do, and there's so many different areas that so many can join in and put their hands to do. So I thank you so much for really laying out what the plan is and laying out what the work that you're doing and keeping continuing in Charles County. And I applaud your efforts. I applaud the branch here in Charles County, hashtag 7016 for everything that you all are doing. And I just thank you so much for coming on tonight. So we're gonna wrap it up. Really, we've gone into 30 minutes and we
Yes.
still have so much that we could talk about. But I thank you so
Well,
much
I'll be
for
willing to
coming
come
on.
back.
Oh, absolutely.
I'll be willing to come back and we can finish the rest of it. But I tell people, if I can just say this, if the NAACP is not your thing, find what your thing is and get into the fight. Okay,
Right.
get into the fight. This fight, everyone needs to be in it. We call on our white brothers and sisters too. This is everybody's fight. Everyone needs to be in this fight.
That's right. That's right. So with that, I just want
Thank
to
you
thank
so
you
very
again,
much.
Dyotha, for coming on. And that's it. We're we're at 30 minutes and we're gonna wrap it up. Thank you to everybody who came out to view tonight. And I hope you all were blessed with the words. And I can't wait. Dyotha, you heard it from her yourself. Everyone heard that. So if you know her, get on her. We're going to get her back on here so we can continue this conversation. But thank you to all who joined out and blessings to you all. Good night.
Good night, everyone.